Welcome back to Geared for Growth. I'm Mike Mortlock, and today's guest is Andy Reid, author of Success Curious, speaker, coach, mentor, and an auctioneer who has seen just about every trick in the book. We actually met by chance at an airport, had a laugh, and agreed we should turn that chat into a show. In this episode, we dig into what investors are getting right and wrong in Melbourne right now. Andy explains why interstate money is turning up every weekend, where the quiet pockets of value still sit near Tullamarine, and why the most competitive auction stock is often 700 to 1.1 price banded. We get real about professionalism in real estate, underquoting headlines, and how to separate data from narrative. We also talk about AVMs and AI, what they can help with, what they can't, and why logic only gets you halfway. Most importantly, Andy gives investors a practical game plan for auction day, how to set your tempo, when to use larger increments, how to stay calm under pressure, and why simple courtesy can shift the energy in the room. If you've ever wondered how an elite auctioneer reads bidders or how to beat someone with a bigger budget, this one's for you. Let's get into it. Andy Reid, welcome to Geared for Growth.
It's an absolute pleasure. I'm fanboying a little bit, if I'm being honest, Mike.
Get out of town. Well, this interview started in one of the most unlikely ways. That is standing next to each other at the airport, and then me going, "Wait, are you Andy Reid?" And you're like, "Oh, I know you as well." And now we're like, "Let's have a show." But like, you aren't just a random stranger at an airport. You are a highly credentialed person, author of Success Curious, which is a book that I'm curious to read myself once it finds its way into the post.
Once I actually get it in the post, yeah.
And I mean, your resume is pretty broad, but I suppose you are a speaker, a coach, a mentor, an auctioneer par excellence, an amateur gymnast or trampolinist. What else have I missed?
Yeah, the rotator cuff is still recovering from my trampolining exploits. But yeah, no, it's. I guess I get the popular vernacular is you can just pop it down to me being riddled with ADHD, right? So it's why I need to do several things. But hilariously, although it looks like I do loads of stuff, I really only do one thing. I just do it in a few different ways. That's all. My job in life is to make success more accessible. And whether it is through an auction where I'm helping buyers, vendors, agents be more successful, whether it's through the book and hopefully I'm getting a few people to have a little giggle at my expense and make them feel that success isn't that far away. My job is to try and reduce the gap between the haves and the have-nots. And I'm designed to be on the front line, right? So I'm not designed to be on a boat and sipping champagne and eating caviar. I eat seafood anyway. Right. So that's me, man. But I just do it in a few different ways. That's all.
All right. Well, we're going to zero in on some of your area of expertise in and around property. Of course, Geared for Growth, property investors have been quite active in your backyard in the last little while. So kick us off with Melbourne. What's going on in Melbourne from an investor's standpoint?
The volume of interstate money that's coming down it's very, very tangible. There isn't a weekend that goes by where I've not got interstate investors having a play and bidding at auction, right? Whether it's via one of the online apps like your Auctions Live or something like that, or whether it's just over the phone, right? Every single weekend I've got interstate investment coming through, which is a relief for Melbourne in some respects, because Melbourne investors have been a bit like rats off a sinking ship. Because of the increase in taxes and all the different legislation changes that keep coming through and whatnot. It's not the easiest game in the world down here from an investment side of things, but as we've all been looking at the different ends of the cycle that different states are at, Melbourne's it's got to pop at some point, right? We can't be cheaper than Adelaide for this long.
No, and that's the thing. It's cheap, right? And if we look at 23, 24, it was the rise of the affordable markets like Perth, like Adelaide, like Brisbane. Brisbane is still going, but Melbourne is in the doldrums, and for all the reasons that you discussed. I mean, it's not a mystery as to why. It's the minimum standards legislation, it's the residential tenancies, it's the land tax. It's the
Take your pick.
yeah, I know. It's the political situation. It's the budget that's in the
All right, mate.
red.
Come on, you're making me want to jump ship in a minute.
It's the weather. It's the AFL obsession. I do have to hope to go back to Melbourne one day, so I'll cap it there. Right? But it's priced in, right? Like, I mean, totally. Especially the land tax side of things. It's priced in. Like, people, it's not new now. People understand it, and they realize, yeah, I might have to pay a couple of grand a year, but honestly, where else can I buy something for $700K like this near a capital city?
100%, man. And there's certain pockets within Melbourne where one key statistic, which is kind of going on the radar a little bit until very recently, is years of ownership. And there are certain pockets, especially around the airport, right, around Tullamarine Airport, where they are cheap as chips still. And we're talking good subdividable land, right? And the years of ownership around there are the biggest in town. I'm talking 19 years still. 19, 19, a long time. And a lot of them are coming towards that part in their generational lives where they can't do it no more. And it's really starting to kick into gear in a big way there. So there's still some insane pockets of affordability where I'm calling an auction. And even in the back of my head, I'm going, this is unreal. This is cheap. So yeah, man, there's still some really good affordability kicking around. And those pockets that I mentioned, you're only talking about, you're less than 20 minutes from the CBD.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
As well as being 15 minutes from the major airport.
Yeah. And then you look at certain places, like let's say Albury, Wagga, places like that. It's like, okay, well, it's actually seemingly more expensive in some of those regional pockets, right?
Oh, big time. Like, yeah, the whole lifestyle thing, because we joke about the weather, right? But realistically, the Melbourne lifestyle took such a huge hit mentally and psychologically through all the stuff from 2020, 2021 and the like. And people going into state and realizing, the grass is actually greener in various places. And the regional jump that a lot of people took as well led a lot of people to go, oh, you know what, right? This is the way to go. And what we're finding is, or what I'm starting to hear on the front line, so keep my ear to the ground, is it might not be getting reflected as much in statistics at the minute, but because government are trying to stop the sprawl of suburbia as much, and they're trying to really push hard into medium density housing as well, and that sense of space is becoming a very, very distant memory, which for Johnny foreigners like me, right, I'm used to it, right? Yeah. I'm used to London having 80 million people in it. That's what I'm used to in one place. That's so for those of us that are from overseas, it's a walk in the park. But for a heck of a lot of people, they'd rather pay more and go further away.
Yeah, and I suppose units are at the bottom of that cycle in terms of the performance, where they are now starting to outperform houses because the gap is broadened so much. However, I still think as Australians we do covet that detached dwelling and that extra space, and I think the investor decisions are probably going that way unless they're forced from an affordability point of view to get something a little bit smaller, which sort of begs the question. Obviously, you're very busy with the gavel of a weekend doing the auctioneering stuff. Does the investment sort of grade stock? And what I mean by that is, I suppose things that are probably sub 800 or 900K, do they typically go to auction, or are they normally a private treaty thing?
No, look, I actually said this to the Herald Sun a couple of weeks ago. The most popular stock at auction at the minute is your standard suburban stuff. Right. It's your 700 to 1.1 type stuff that is going like the clappers. It really, really is. In fact, I have one client that does do a lot of work in and around that sort of St Albans, Delahaye, that sort of neck of the woods near Tullamarine, and his stuff is mid-6. Right. And hilariously, he's a one-man band, we call auctions at 9:30 on a Saturday morning where everyone says it's too early. We have the biggest crowds known to man, and he'll have 4, 5, 6 bidders, no questions asked. Half the neighbours are still there because they're not out of the PJs yet. And he'll not only will he pick up stock, well, not only will he pick up business from 2 of the neighbours, but he'll see lots of action. I think we can officially just get rid of that myth that price point affects auction capability and capacity. There's just too many buyers now that are they're just way more aware about what the go is. So it's a bit of a fallacy now, I would have thought.
And with the investors, do you have sort of a seat of the pants idea about the percentage of representation by buyers agents compared to investors purchasing themselves?
I wish I'd seen more, to be honest. Whenever I chat to buyer advocate friends, some of which we're both very well acquainted with, I kind of wish I'd seen more of them because I see them as fun. They're like competition. It's good. Yep. I get to get my teeth out in a professional sense, right, and have a proper professional dance with these people, right? But I actually don't see that many. Right. Although the statistics are 400 new ones a month or something like that. It's crazy.
Well, it's big.
Boom of it. It's pretty insane. And the credibility and the standards of them is a real challenge for your established players, like our good friend Kate Bakos, for example, who is an absolute standard bearer for business generally, let alone her own game. Matt Scafidis and those types of people. This, the standards is wavering very, very quickly.
Both are previous guests as well, so you can look them up. I want to circle back and unpack something. I think you, whether wittingly or unwittingly, I think you do everything wittingly and wittily. But you talked about, you wish you'd see more of them because you get more of a chance to kind of tussle with them. I guess what we're sort of getting at there is that we talked a little bit off air about real estate being one of those things where I think people have a heightened sense of their knowledge of the product of real estate because it is just so accessible. Everyone kind of lives in a dwelling. You drive to work, passing dwellings. You go to a barbecue. The conversations about real estate. It's a national topic in national news. So people feel like they have a fairly good grasp of it. But the reality is that what they know is not necessarily something that's going to help them transact and get a good deal or buy a good investment. And I think the stats bear that out, right? I mean, if the average Australian was a really good real estate brain, then the average person wouldn't own one investment property, which is, like 71.5% of people only ever own one. So I'm wondering, can you elucidate the difference of, let's say there's an investor who's interacting with you because they want to secure this compared to a buyer's advocate? Are there some simple ways that you kind of go, look, this is just the standard way that I'm approached. These are the standard questions. These are the ways that I will get information from them without them knowing or consenting to giving that to me. Give us a bit of an overview about how someone like you can be challenged by an advocate, or at least you have to put the effort in, compared to just someone coming up that's investing and it's maybe only the second property they've ever bought, feeling like they're fairly confident, and then you just tearing them to shreds, I assume.
Oh, look, and it sounds harsh, right? But that's kind of my job.
It's your job.
Is to extract money for the vendor. Now, the interesting thing is, when you were talking just then, you said on a number of occasions, people think that they know what they are doing or they know what is happening, right? The word "what," right? And let's not beat around the bush. The availability to get hold of what the information is, it's super easy now. Everybody can do it, but that's not what sets the difference. That's not what sets you apart from anybody else because of how easy it is to get hold of the information. So with investors, it used to be, even only a few years ago, it used to be that investors, you would know, there would be an energy around an investor that is markedly different because of the fact that they will have a better understanding of the what, right, of the marketplace. Whereas now, everybody's got a similar level of understanding, right, pretty much, or they've got access to it at the very, very least. So investors now are finding themselves, for me, sort of caught between a rock and a hard place. Because all of a sudden, what they know is not going to help them anymore.
Yeah.
And this is where the difference between let's call it what it is, an amateur and a professional, right? And you say that about any service based operation or anything like this. It's not what you know that will set you apart or make you any better or get you in a better position or buy you an investment at a better level. It's going to be how you do it and why you are taking the actions that you're taking and the calculations, both emotionally, physically, psychologically, and all that sort of stuff. Because the tangible logic of the market is not where the game is won and lost. It's all the other stuff, right? Because irrespective of whether you're buying it for purely for investment purposes and it's just about the money and it's just about the portfolio, or if you've got some serious emotional attachment, there is going to be an emotion that will drive you at some stage, right? And as soon as I twig on what that is, I've got you. Right. And there's not a lot that can be done about it. Right. For a lot of investors, the one emotion that they tend to really play off is just ego. It's the I know more than you, the alpha isms of how they rock and roll. And as soon as you see it, like I said to someone the other Saturday, I said, it's great to see that you've been to the party shop and bought yourself the bidder outfit, complete with aviators and baseball cap and all the rest of it, right? Good to see you got the costume on. And it's just for people like myself who are obsessed with the craft of auctioneering, it's really obvious. And so for advocates, because you know who they are and they make it very clear that they are who they are, right? None of them mess about like that. Not that I've seen, unless they do, and I just don't care or don't notice. The real professional ones, they're there to do a job, and they'll let you know that they're there to do a job. But they're there to do the right job, not just some job that destroys everything, right? Like they don't want to burn everyone's bridges and burn everyone's ships down. So it's not the what, it's everything else. It's the grey, not the black and white.
So will there be typical things that you will sort of do to interact with these people to try and glean some information about maybe how committed they are, whether they've looked at other things, maybe even so far as what their sort of price point is or what their budget is? Like, what are some of the tricks that we can, I suppose we're trying to give people information that means if they come across you next weekend, you'll be immune. They'll be immune to all of your charms.
Ironically, the more you try and hide from me, the more I know.
Right.
Like I said this to you before we kicked off. I don't mind sharing this stuff because I am obsessed with it, right? So, I am forever learning, forever studying. I'm the son of 2 police officers. So I was born and raised to understand human behavior, body language, and all that sort of stuff, right? It's part of who I am. For a lot of auctioneers, and I've got no harm in saying this, they don't treat the craft seriously enough. Mm-hmm. And if they're not in touch, and if they're not practicing, right, and if they're not studying, you can catch them out by trying to hide what your intentions are and what your motives are and all that sort of stuff. Someone like me, though, it's obvious. The more you try and deny me, the more I will find out. And so, oddly, it sounds really daft. And for a lot of people, they'll go, "Nah, you're just trying to make it life easy for you." No. The more transparent you are with me, the less ammo I've got.
Right.
Essentially, it's kind of like Eminem in that movie 8 Mile. When in his last rap battle, he spent the whole time ripping into himself so that his competitor had nothing to say.
Yeah, right.
And it's the same sort of thing, right? If you're just upfront with us and you tell us straight the whole time, like it's very easy to navigate it. It's all the other people that try too hard that get busted.
Yeah. Do they think they're being sort of unique and individual and it's a strategy that has never been employed before? Or they're like, he'll really be rattled by this? Or do they sort of understand like every joke about, the situation you've probably heard a million times before?
Variations of a theme, right? One of the beautiful things about what I do and why I do it is the fact is not lost on me that all 8 billion people on the planet, and we're all wired differently. I love that, right? So, but there will be general themes, and they'll do it in their own individual way at times. But they generally run to a certain textbook, a certain non-specific textbook that they got told by Uncle Dave down at the barbecue or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of it is a bit cliche, being perfectly frank. And it's interesting. I actually had this conversation with a group of tech heads yesterday, and the society is becoming a lot more. They're becoming a lot more scrutinizing as to what's real and what's not, because I think the projected stat is 48% of all content online is going to be Gen AI generated, right? And so the world is being trained subconsciously to be a lot more skeptical about what's going on. Which I think is actually a wonderful thing, because it means the whole fake it till you make it is going to die on its arse, which is great. But in an auctioneering sense and in a bidding sense, from an investor's point of view, very few places to hide now. So why try?
There's something that I did want to talk to you in that sort of AI side of things. I remember, I think it was one of the big banks, I won't say the name, but it was like a first home buyer couple, and they go into this open home, and the real estate's sort of saying like, oh, it'll go for, 900,000 or whatever. And then they go to this app and they get the real estimate, and they're like, oh, it's, the price guide's 1.1. And they're like, they walk along like looking at each other knowingly, like, lucky we know what we're doing, blah, blah, blah. And I mean, the reality is that AVMs, like I won't say they're terrible. There's a lot of technology that's gone into AVMs, and they are a miraculous product, but you can't set your watch to them. They come up with all sorts of different things, and they're only as good as the data that goes in. They can't tell if the property's been improved or renovated. So they have a part to play, but you can't go around with an AVM saying like, I've hacked this house. I'm like, I know exactly what's going on. But I feel like people are now doing that with AI, and they're coming to these auctions, and they've got this, you can interrogate a million different things, and it'll even say, do you want me to, look into flood zones, or do you want me to give you a 100-year history of the suburb? I mean, you could go with a whole stack of pages. I'm just wondering, like, is anyone using that in a practical way, or is that just becoming quite sort of trite and everyone's just got the same information and there's no real value in that? The Geared for Growth Property Investing podcast is presented by our business, MCG Quantity Surveyors. If you're an investor or a property professional looking to get the best tax depreciation deductions for yourself or your clients, please get in touch with us at mcgqs.com.au. It's our mission to help as many property investors as we can to maximise their claims and maximise their property education as well.
I actually, look, everything you just said is spot on. And AVMs, they the variance on them is still insane, right? So that's all you got to look at is the variant, is the range that they play with when it's like a 30% range, right? Okay, good luck, right? Trying to work that one out. So, but when it comes to your perplexities, your chat GPTs, it is understandably, because a lot of the new wave of buyer advocates are actually telling everybody to do this on TikTok at the minute. They're telling them to stick an address into ChatGPT and tell it to give you an estimate on value, and including 3 comparable sales and blah, 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 blah. And the information is getting a little bit more accurate. But the thing that I like about it is the fact that it gives our industry a chance to actually demonstrate credibility, which I think is amazing. Because as long as it's opinion versus opinion, they're like, rear ends. Everyone's got one, right? And a lot of agents get it wrong, but get it wrong in terms of their practice because they focus too much on what their opinion is. Whereas now, buyers, investors, they're coming to them with logic, right? And if you know what you're doing and you know your product, right, and you know your stats and your data and all the stuff that makes you a professional, then you'll have the knowledge and the information to be able to vindicate what it is that you're asking for from the buyers for your property.
Yep.
And because they're coming at you with logic, if you could counteract that with greater logic, then there's nowhere to hide. There's no argument, right? You can't argue with logic, which I think, it sounds like it's a fabulous win for buyers. It's actually playing more into the hands of the professionals,
Right.
as long as they are professional, which is an interesting challenge in itself. But it's a really good opportunity to wean out the ones that don't put the effort into knowing the product and getting it right and being a professional, and the ones that do. And the ones that do, they will have you all ends up if you're an investor and you try to come at them with that.
Yeah. You mentioned the word professional, and it would be remiss of me not to mention some of the things that have popped up in the news about professionalism in real estate in the last little while, and that's the recent sort of underquoting scandal. There was an individual that I've seen their name in the sort of the Arex of the world as a presenter, and I looked at a couple of threads that people sent me. There's some people sort of saying, look, this guy's just been scapegoated, it's a whole industry thing. There's others kind of saying, like, okay, yeah, well, you've got like one person for breaching it, but there's still a lot of work to do. I mean, I think Victoria kind of was really the underquoting capital of Australia for one point in time. I actually did some research on guide prices and sale prices, and Victoria came first or last, depending on where you look at it, for underquoting. How big of an issue is it, and why is it such a problem for investors and home buyers alike?
So, a couple of things to this. First things first, it's on the onus of the purchaser to do your homework. And now, more than ever, you got no excuse, right? There are that many free apps that can find out the information that you need to know within about 20 seconds, right?
Yep.
And that's if you're slow on on clicking buttons and stuff.
Yeah.
Now, with respect to the ethics around it from a professionalism point of view, there's been a very, very public case that's come out recently, and whether they, because they've not been found guilty yet, so we won't disparage them as one or the other at this point in time. We'll let the process do its thing. But for me, the way that I see that situation and beyond, I see it as a tremendous opportunity, right? I see it as a tremendous opportunity for us to change the narrative internally. It's fairly obvious as to why consumers do not trust us one bit, right? It's fairly obvious, and and to a greater extent, I understand it and I get it, right? I used to have a massive chip on my shoulder about it, but I'm like, fair. I can only do what I can do, right? So when it comes to the misleading nature of underquoting, one thing that I tend to say during an auction, and I end up getting put in a position where I say it every weekend, is the amount of buyers and investors that lie to me during an auction is insane. Right. They'll say they're out 4 times. Yeah. And I joke about it. And often I'll say, jeepers, and apparently we're the ones that can't be trusted.
Yeah.
Right? The reality of the situation is people are only making moves, and we're talking about consumers first. They're only making moves because that's what they feel is the right thing to do for them and their families, right? Mm-hmm. I don't begrudge it. I don't care if people lie to me, right? Because they think that that's the right thing to do. Yep. And for buyers, understandably, they want to pay as little as possible. Why wouldn't you, right? And there's going to be an emotional gap between buyers and sellers because the sellers want to get as much as possible.
Yep.
Now, it kind of puts the industry in a bit of a rock and a hard place. And I'm not going to break out the smallest violin in the world and say we're the victims. Far from it. But at the end of the day, when people are only acting in self-interest, there's the consumers that we're dealing with, not one of them, hardly any of them are transparent,
right,
in the first place. So you can argue that the industry is reflective of its consumer base to a degree. Right. And I don't think many people have the balls to say that, but it's true. Like, you just go to an auction, see how many times I get lied to.
Yeah,
it's mad, and that's why I'm a police officer's son, right? Because I'm a human lie detector. So now, can the industry improve? 100% it can. At the same time, the black and the white is not what determines the value. As I mentioned before, it's the grey. It's the emotional involvement, right? That's what determines whether a market really goes up or down.
Yep.
You can look at all the data under the sun if you like, but if we were all to do that and all to work to logic, then the world would be boring, right? It'd be really, really boring. There'd be people that love all that stuff that think it's the best thing ever. I think it'd be boring as batshit. But it's like it's like what we said before we started, mate. The facts of the matter is not what drives society. It's the media narrative that drives it, right?
Yeah.
And media is governed by how much emotion they kick up, so it generates clicks and views and looks and reads and pays, and so we can talk about underquoting till the cows come home. And yes, there are things that you can do. In fact, Matt Scavidi, he actually came up with a brilliant idea that REA could do, which is to put a blue sort of verification type tick on agents that have their sale prices be within a certain remit from the original advertised price.
Yeah,
and then that would verify them as a legit agent that's putting stuff out there at a legitimate price point, right? But with regards to one or two people that have made the news recently, a couple of years ago, like all you had to do was go onto an RP data, a totality as it's called now, and have a look at the variance in first listed to true sale price.
Yep.
We're talking average 18, 20%.
Yep.
It's fairly obvious who's doing right and who's doing wrong when you look at it that way, right?
Yes, yeah.
So, yeah, man.
Do you feel like it's the consumer reacting to their implied idea that all agents are going to be untrustworthy and untruthful, and they don't feel like they need to have any scruples about being dishonest because they believe they're playing within a dishonest space to begin with?
Yeah. Oh, like I said, one can't survive without the other, right? It's that Newton's third law, right? Every action has an equal and opposite equal reaction, and and it can be a little bit chicken and egg in that respect, 100%, 100%. However, I don't see it as dishonest. I see it as self-preservation, and when it comes to consumers, it was one big penny drop moment that I had when I was a salesperson, because I used to be really white knuckle, and like I said, I had a big chip on my shoulder because I like doing the right thing by people. It's why I love being an auctioneer, because I've got nowhere to hide. I don't want anywhere to hide. I love being open and whatnot, right? It makes my life way easier. But when I was an agent, I used to be so white knuckle and get so wound up when I found out that someone was lying to me in inverted commas, right? When I then just sort of sat and said, how arrogant am I to assume that everybody's just going to tell me the truth? How arrogant does that make me? So as soon as I let go of that and realized they're just trying to do what's best for them, you can't begrudge them of that, right? And that's why I'm totally crazy when people lie to me all the time during an auction. I'm totally cool with it because I know that their intention is just to do what's best for them. Why should they give a shit about me? I've given them a headache already, right? So why should they care about me? They shouldn't. They should just care about their families. That's what they're supposed to do. So can't knock them for it. It's just I think we need to. Perhaps both sides, right? I think we need to get off our high horse a little bit, right? And I think progress is only ever going to be found through the acceptance of our own vulnerabilities.
I like that.
And if we don't, well, it's true. Like, because otherwise it's just going to say, well, you did this, or well, you did that, you did the other. It's like generational inequalities, right?
Yeah.
If they all just shut up and just go, yeah, well, you know what? I am pretty shit at this, but you're pretty amazing at that. Then they'd all of a sudden see that they're actually two perfectly fitting jigsaw pieces.
We need to send you to the Middle East or something. You have that solved in an afternoon.
Oh, nah, man, because half of them wouldn't understand the word I'm saying anyway, right?
Probably.
My accent will completely knacker that up.
It is a dodgy accent, I'll give you that. So I wonder, like, for an investor that's coming to an auction, let's say there's someone that's looking at a particular property, they kind of think it matches their brief and it's everything that they want, and they show up on site and they see you. Is it right to kind of think this is the guy in the way of what I want? Or should it be like, okay, we are here to bid. This guy's job is not to serve us, of course. His fiduciary responsibility is to the vendor. He needs to get as much as possible. But should they be looking at you as an adversary, or is there a way that they can say to you, which seems like the wrong thing to say to someone like you, is that we actually like the place, we are here to buy it if the price is right? What advice would you give to people? Like, can you actually be a partner, or are you the enemy?
I'm neither, is the honest answer. I'm neither,
Yep.
right? If they're seeing me as the enemy, they're looking at the wrong person.
Right.
Right, because my job is not to get in the way of anyone. My job is to facilitate a dream. Or, if you're trying to put a cliche line on it, right, it makes you vomit.
Yep.
My job is to facilitate a transaction. The enemy is whoever they're competing against in the buying side of things.
Yep.
Right, and if they spend too much energy trying to beat me, they will get beat by the person that they're actually competing against.
Right.
I say it regularly. The psychology is more important than the numbers.
Yeah.
And there are ways that a purchaser can beat someone with a higher budget. Right. There are plenty of ways. Right.
Yeah.
But you got to focus on the right competition. Right now, so that's the first thing. It's the psychology that you play. It's the psychological battle that you play against your competing bidders that will determine whether you win or lose. Right. It's not the auctioneer. Right.
Yeah.
It's not. Now, in terms of their interaction with me, if they were to see a me or someone or an auctioneer, then remember this one thing: we are, believe it or not, Mike, believe it or not, we are human beings too. Believe it or not, I know it. I know you're a bit skeptical about that. Like,
I'm going to need that signed by a JP.
I might be AI generated 7 fingers on one hand, sort of thing, right? But the simple truth is, if you're courteous to me, what do you think you're going to get?
Yeah, it makes sense, right?
I say this to my kids: like, courtesy is currency in the world, right? This might be bad parenting, but I say to my boy, I'm like, boy, Cal, I wouldn't give a shit if you robbed a bank as long as you say please and thank you on the way in and out, right? Like courtesy it's such an underrated commodity. Yeah. In society. And if a buyer, if an investor came up to me and treated me like a professional human being, what do you think you're going to get back? Right.
And that sort of makes me wonder, because I presume most people won't do that. They'll be fearful of you, or they're worried about like how they're going to interact with you. They either might be an alpha that's sort of hanging back, ready to smash you in their head, or they're a little bit timid and they're like, I actually don't feel up to this challenge. I'm nervous. But either way, coming up to you and say, hi, just introducing myself. I'm, looking to bid today. I'm wondering, like, you obviously have a set of rules that you need to operate within, but can you give any sort of favorable treatment to people that are treating you respectfully? For example, you have the opportunity to deny bids if someone's trying to change an increment. That might be an example where, you're not breaking the law, but you actually have a little bit of latitude to make decisions that can favor people, as long as the end result is that it's favoring your vendors' wants and needs, right?
No. Look, I at the end of the day, I have to try and I have to look at giving people the same opportunity, right?
Yep.
Having but like I said, subconsciously, for a lot of auctioneers, and I've had to work really hard on getting myself on really coaching myself out of this. Work really, really hard. Not the easiest thing in the world to do, because subconsciously, if someone's an arsehole to you, then you're going to be inclined to be an arsehole back. Yeah. Right? That's just the way of human nature, right? And so now I've had to work real hard at removing my ego when it comes to people that are just not nice people. Yeah. Because I need to be giving them the same opportunity, whether they're cool or not. If they're going to be stupid and start really disrupting an auction, thinking that that's them doing themselves a favor, then I'll make them pay. Yep. I'll make them pay hard, because that's not in the interests of the owner, right? If they're trying to completely derail an auction, I will chew them up and spit them out, because my job's to protect the value of the asset, right? Yeah. But for example, I can see when it's someone's first go, right? I can see when someone is feeling the pressure, right? And if they came to me and said, "Look, it's my first go. I am crapping myself," then I will do what I can do in terms of controlling the energy, the emotion, the narrative, the pressure, to give you as much of an opportunity as I possibly can.
Yep.
Right, because that's what that is in my interests. Right,
Yes. Yeah.
to break down the nervousness, the anxiety, and get everybody in the game. And that's kind of part of the parity of the whole thing, right? Is to get everybody playing on the same level. Because for those that are egotistical, arrogant, all that sort of stuff, a lot of the time I have to work to help them get themselves out of their own way. Right. And generally one of the general giveaways when I know that I've finally got them on the right level is when I get a little wry smile or a little giggle or something like that. And then I know that they've finally gone, right, I can let go of my ego. It's not working. Let's just do the right thing now. Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
But then on the really shy ones, body language plays a massive part. So I'm a tall guy, and big and loud and all the rest of it. And so tonality, volume, like physically shrinking myself so I don't look as intimidating a figure, right? Is all part of the wonderful art and science of the whole thing. But you can, as an investor, you can do a heck of a lot worse than just coming and saying hello.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, that's interesting, and I wonder what percentage of people would actually do that. Like, hello, I intend to be sort of interacting with you this afternoon. Please be nice, or like let's game on. Like, let's go to war.
Bit of banter, I love banter, right?
Yeah.
Like, I love it. And part of what I do, if I get there with loads of time beforehand, I'll walk around and I'll break ice before we began.
Yep.
So that people see that I'm not big and scary and I'm not there to intimidate. A job of an auctioneer is not to intimidate people. It's not. And that's where the alpha auctioneers need to really sort themselves out and get with the program, because way too many auctioneers are still trying to be all Billy Big Balls and, chest out and give it the beans. And well, now they've got a little microphone and a speaker to try and make them sound even bigger.
Right.
And really, man, that's not our job. Like, part of the psychology when I'm coaching auctioneers at the start of the auction, you've got to create a warm, inviting, you've got to make them feel like it's an atmosphere that they can be involved in. Right. Yeah. Take the property purchase out of it, just doing something in front of a bunch of random people, public speaking, like it's the same anxiety as getting up on a stage for people, right?
Yeah.
And that's second to death. So I've got a much more primary concern, which is removing that anxiety before I can get them to do anything.
Right.
And so, if I was a purchaser, stopping short of getting half cut, right, and bringing out the Dutch courage, right, and what have you, short of doing that, because I need you sober at the wheel. Do what you feel you need to do to make you feel a little bit more calm. Right, a real physiological hack, shall we call it, is making sure that you've got a bottle of water or something that you can just sip on constantly, because then it just centers you again. It centers you and it takes you out of your head and into reality by doing something physical like that, right? It's why it's one of the scientific things of those fidget spinnery, though, the fidget cubey type things. It helps you stay present because it keeps you in the moment. It keeps you doing something physical that keeps you where you're supposed to be. Whereas for a bidder, if they get too caught up in their own head and they're in their own emotion, they'll either overpay and then really freak out, right? Or they'll cut the nose off to spite the face and end up missing out on what could have been the next big step in their lives, and I'm not putting mayo on that. That's just the truth.
Yeah, I suppose like when you're talking about the shy person, if you are, as you say, Billy Big Balls, the auctioneer, and you've got an alpha, I've never actually said that phrase in my life, so thanks for bringing me on board, the alumni of the Billy Big Balls Club. If there's you, Billy Big Balls, and then an alpha, and then you've got a shy person who probably has, let's just say they've got more money to spend, if it's going too fast and there's too much interaction, they might go, oh, this is too much, and they just walk away. They say, it's not my weekend. I can't do it. I'm terrified. So if you don't consider the the players in the room and give that person the time and slow it down, well, you aren't actually working in the vendor's best interest, right? Because there was a bidder there that could have participated and it could have been a better price.
Oh, big time. And I'll never forget. It was years ago. I reckon it was probably about 11 years ago. And I was at a property in Glen Waverley. It was a unit. It was the first time it had been sold. And and it's right by the Glen Shopping Centre. Incredible spot from an investment point of view. And there was an alpha Mediterranean chap who was built like a gorilla.
Right.
And he was giving it the beans. And on the other side was this really small, petite lady with a little red cardigan on. She couldn't look more petite and dainty if she tried. Handbag held up by her chest and all this sort of stuff. Couldn't have been more the stereotype, right?
Yep.
And the hilarious thing was she was so unmoved by his bravado, and she was just so consistent and played the game in her own time, with in her own rhythm. She was within herself, and all she did was focus on me. Right? She didn't pay attention to this big bloody gorilla that was marching up and down, and he was literally marching up and down and making a deal of himself and all the rest of it. And she just stood there very politely every time he bid and he was giving it everything. She just very politely just put her hand up and just not even say much to me, right? And she ended up beating him into submission.
And the crowd would have been behind her too, I'm guessing.
He would have. She had some. She definitely had some support by the end of it, right? And there was a bit of a cheer and all the rest of it. But he ended up winding himself up into a tiz, right? So, key advice is understanding that the things that contribute towards the psychology of an auction is money. Of course, money plays a part, but the speed, the tone, and the volume in which you interact with the crowd and with the auctioneer plays a huge part. Just work to your own speed, work to your own time, work to your own energy, right? Don't get influenced by someone that's trying to play the game. Don't get intimidated by a buyer advocate, because they stand generally, a lot of them tend to stand, or like the textbook position for a buyer advocate is sort of at the auctioneer's sort of 7, 8 o'clock or sort of 4 o'clock.
Yep.
Staring at the buyers, right? Because they want to eyeball them, right? Yep. And so just don't make eye contact. Just play it to what makes you feel most comfortable, right? Just what makes you feel most comfortable. And as long as you can focus on that, you're half the way to winning in a big way.
And I know that there are buyers advocates that do a negotiation only service. Let's just say that's a $2,000 or $3,000 fee, which I think maybe is close to the going rate. You can correct me on that. But would an investor be silly not to pay for a local expert that knows the auctioneer and has just done the reps? They've done hundreds of these auctions. Where do you sort of land on that? Like, who makes you work harder? Is it the general public? Is it the advocate? I mean, maybe not harder, but like, who actually tends to underpay more than the other? Perhaps is a better way to put it.
Look. If you want a higher probability of getting a decent outcome, then one thing that a lot of advocates understand, which can cause a lot of problems for everybody else, is that sometimes you've got to lose a battle to win a war.
Yep.
And sometimes conceding a little bit to gain a bit more will end up putting you in a better net position than just being super hardball about this, that, or the other, right? About the figure that you're at or whatever the case may be. Because again, there's a psychology to it. If you refuse to even compromise in the slightest, then the psychology that's showing to the owner is that they shouldn't be dealing with you, right? That's the subconscious psychology of it all, right? Whereas with an advocate, sure, they might go in at a slightly higher initial figure, but it's with a view to winning the war, not winning the battle, right? Yep. Not winning that initial battle of who takes the first step. You know, they're interested in the long-term perspective of the negotiation, which is why they are paid for what they do. You know, and that's again, and that's where And in terms of the reps and the connection and the relationship that they have with the real estate agents or the auctioneers or whoever the case may be, that degree of familiarity, we're stupid if we think that that's not going to play a part, right? You're nuts if you think that that's not going to play a part. Yep. So, of course, it's going to. And if a professional negotiator can talk on a level that makes that offer be taken more seriously, what do you think the chances are of getting it through?
That makes sense.
So
we've covered a hell of a lot of ground today, Andy, and I'd love to have you back to chat about lots of other different topics that I think we could spin off from this. But if you wouldn't mind kind of finishing us off, let's just say somebody is looking to acquire an investment property in a location where they either can't afford or can't justify, or there isn't an advocate there to represent them. What are probably the biggest tips that you can give to them for game day to make sure that they secure the property if the price is at the point where they see value, and not overpay and not make it a traumatic experience where something goes wrong for them?
Visualization's huge. You got to visualize the game before it gets played, and visualize it in a few different ways, right? Now, as a little FYI, I do this before every single auction, and I do hundreds, so a year. So visualize it in a position where no bids happen at all, and then work your way through how you're going to play that scenario. Right to negotiate puts you in an insanely good spot. So don't discount it, even if no one else is bidding. If you're the people there, winning that right to negotiate puts you in the best spot when you're in a market where interest rates have dropped and money's getting cheaper, right?
Yep.
So that's point one. The next visualization you want to have is that if it is sort of cantering to a position, how are you going to play those increments, right? It's not true that just playing small increments is going to put you in the best spot. It's not. A lot of the time, people will think that bringing an auctioneer down to $1,000 bids is going to help. No, because you end up spending another 40 odd grand anyway without realizing it. It's like a death by 1,000 cuts sort of thing. Whereas if you just go windmilling in with a 20, it might intimidate the opposition into thinking that you're too big for them.
Yeah.
Right? So focus on the right competitor when you're doing that visualization of who's the one that you're up against. It ain't the auctioneer. It's the other bidders. Then visualize it going bananas. Visualize it going, like the OK Corral, and there's shots flying everywhere and all this sort of stuff, right? Wild West style. And make sure that you have yourself a comfortable limit, and then an absolute, if needs be, stretch to limit, right? Yep. What's a fair figure? What's a great deal? And figure out that number as well, because then if you can win the right to negotiate under that great deal amount, then you could be on like Donkey Kong.
Yep.
But then what's the absolute limit? Where is the cap? And if I were you, I'd write that down.
Yep.
Because when you're in your own head, it's hard to maintain those numbers, real hard. So write that down if I were you, so that you've got a very physical, tangible reminder of where it's like, red line.
I love that. And I hope that this weekend the investors give you a hell of a lot of trouble based on your own advice, Andy. So I appreciate you giving those secret herbs and spices. We've just maybe made the game a little bit more interesting for you at the next one.
Well, I keep saying, if it was easy, it'd be boring. So, bring as many challenges as you want, man. It makes it fun for me.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks for sharing all the wisdom today, mate. Appreciate it.
Look, pleasure's all mine. Thank you so much for having me.
Cheers.